Of course, there's one little cloud in front of the sun. Of course it is. Well, we just had 75 amps outside, but now it is down to 1.3 amps only. But the sun will come back any moment. Any moment. Guys, welcome back to the Off-Grid Garage in sunny hot Antarctica. It is still freezing cold. We've got like 15 degrees here inside the garage only. But there's nothing I can do about it. I need to be in the garage here because we need to do some more testing on the Solar Gate battery. And I did some really good progress with this whole project now, thanks to you guys. Because in the video I made 4 weeks ago something about the Solar Gate replacement of lead acid batteries with lithium batteries, which then turned out into a battery repair video because cell number 7 was faulty. I have replaced this one now. But I think I have to replace cell number 4 as well. When I put some load on this battery pack, I can see cell number 4 has a lot lower voltage than all the other cells. And 4 and 7 were the 2 dead batteries because I, idiot, left them on the shelf for too long and didn't recharge them. But anyway, in today's video we want to do some more testing with this battery, the JK-BMS and the EPEVER Solar Charge Controller. And as I said, thanks to you guys, I have now bought this EPEVER Wi-Fi module. It is an RS485 to Wi-Fi adapter. It was, I think, 35 Australian dollars or something, including shipping, from AliExpress. Took about a week, then it arrived here. So it basically plugs directly into the COM port of the Solar Charge Controller, like this. The green light turns on and you have to download the Solar Guardian app onto your mobile phone. This is necessary to set up the stick and connect it with your home Wi-Fi. Because under this video 4 weeks ago there was a bit of mixed information from you guys. Some said if you have the Wi-Fi stick it cannot connect to your home Wi-Fi. It only emits an access point and you can connect with the app directly to this Wi-Fi dongle. And some other people said, no, you can actually connect it to the home Wi-Fi and then access it from a computer and also from the app when you're not at home. It goes to an EPEVER cloud server. So I said, I don't know. Let's buy one. Let's find out. And this has actually both. It emits an access point. You can connect your mobile phone directly to the Wi-Fi dongle and to the tracer and Solar Charge Controller or any of the other EPEVER devices actually. And you can also connect this Wi-Fi dongle to your home Wi-Fi. And here you can see it's connected to my own network now, but it also still runs in AP mode, in access point mode, and you can use your mobile phone to connect directly to the Wi-Fi dongle. So you don't have to connect it to your home Wi-Fi because then it connects also to a cloud server and you can use the Solar Guardian website, create an account and log in. And here under devices, you can set up the Solar Charge Controller as well as the gateway list is here. Yeah, this is the Wi-Fi dongle with the serial number. And I had to actually contact the Solar Guardian hotline because the dongle wouldn't connect to their cloud service at all. And I sent them a couple of screenshots and they found out very quickly. So here in the dongle itself, under other settings, you have to change the network parameter settings, especially the server address. Because apparently they have 2 platforms, one for the Chinese mainland and the other one is internationally for everyone else. And my one was obviously configured to the Chinese mainland and it couldn't contact the server from here. So it didn't talk back to the My Guardian system. But after changing this one and waiting for half an hour, the Solar Guardian website actually changed to online and I can now also see my Solar Charge Controller in here. And if you click on this one, you get all the information from the Solar Charge Controller and have also access to the battery parameters, battery control parameters we need to go in. And here you can see the same parameters I've shown you in the app where I used the RS485 adapter to connect to the Solar Charge Controllers directly. But now this all works via the Wi-Fi stick and the cloud service. And it also works with the, I'll show you it quickly here. This is the Solar Guardian app on the mobile phone, gives you all the parameters. So you can change everything wherever you are using their service. over voltage disconnect voltage, charging limit voltage, over voltage recovery voltage, equalization, bulk voltage. Everything can be set now here via the website or the app on your mobile phone. And there's also a Home Assistant integration for this EPEVER Wi-Fi dongle. I haven't had time to look into it. It is a bit tricky to set up, but apparently this is possible to get all the information into Home Assistant. But I don't think you can actually set any parameters to the solar charge controllers. But that is totally fine, because once the solar charge controller is set, we are not going into it and change parameters constantly. So, yeah. Yeah, so this is the progress I made in the last 4 weeks with the solar charge controller. And in today's video, I want to do a charge algorithm test with the battery and the solar charge controller and see if the settings in the charge controller are actually making sense and charging the battery correctly. And here again, some of you guys have these EPEVER for quite a while and have good knowledge about the settings and parameters to set, and they gave me some good tips. And I want to share these information here on the channel as well. So let me walk you through the setup here. So obviously we've got our battery here connected to the JK-BMS. Then we've got the solar charge controller connected to the BMS. And I use the adjustable power supply up here as a solar panel. It sits on 44, 45 volts or something. I limit the current to 1 amp, and the MPPT actually figures out what is the best way to drive this solar panel. Yeah, and it charges then the battery. I've also these two 12-volt light bulbs here, which I have soldered together and connected some cables as well to make a 24-volt light bulb. And we can actually use the button here on the solar charge controller to turn on a load, yeah, and discharge the battery a bit. It's only around 17.5 watts or something, but it gives us roughly 0.7 amps or something out of these 5 amp hour batteries, so that's fine. And I have also connected the IBMS monitor board to the JK-BMS. This is further development of the PEDOR boards we have tested a year ago, 1.5 years ago or something. So a pretty cool device. It can connect with the RJ45 port to a JK inverter BMS or a Seplos BMS as well and read all the information. Or here with this small 4-pin JST connector, it connects directly to a B series JK-BMS. Can also connect to a JBD, I believe. And as you can see at the moment, there's nothing else connected to it, but it is connected to my home Wi-Fi. And we can read all the information here on this website connecting to this IBMS monitor module. We've got the voltage here, the current, state of charge, state of health, all the information, minimum, maximum cell voltage, all single cell voltages, of course, pretty much all parameters from the JK-BMS. And of course, this IBMS monitor module also connects to Home Assistant and gives you all the entities, all the information you want from your battery. Okay, this just as an information. There will be more videos coming about the IBMS very soon here on the channel. And no, it doesn't use ESP Home anymore. Okay, so far this test setup for today: solar panel, solar charge controller, BMS, battery, and some load over there. Monitoring board to keep an eye on the battery. Okay, I quickly show you the Solar Guardian app here on my mobile phone. And down here we can see we've got the battery information down here, 26.5 volts. And if I turn on the load, it actually triggers this little switch here. It doesn't refresh very often, so it's not the best. Here we go. Now it comes. Refresh. Need to click the refresh button up there. There we go. 0.71 amps goes into our light bulbs. If I turn it off here, do a refresh, it turns off the load as well. And here under parameter settings, we can go into the battery control parameters and see what we have set. So we've got an over voltage disconnect voltage of 29.2 volts, which is a 3.65 times 8. And then we've got a charge limit voltage of 28.4. And to date, I'm not 100% sure what this charge limit voltage is for, because from reading your comments, I initially thought this is the equalization voltage. But we have the equalized charging voltage down here, which is set to 28.4 volts. So let me know in the comments down below what the charging limit voltage is for. Then we've got the over voltage recovery voltage, obviously, the equalization charge voltage, a bulk charging voltage. This is our absorption voltage. And we've got the flow charging voltage of 27.6, which is 3.45 volts. And then we've got a rebulk or a bulk voltage recovery voltage of 26.8, which is 3.35. So as you can see, I have set this all up a bit higher than usually because I don't want to wait for half an hour each time here until the battery actually discharges to a certain amount and then recharge it again. So we are actually now operating in this steeper area of the charge curve, and that's where I have set the bulk charge voltage to 828 or 3.5 volts per cell. So this is just to save me some time here. But later on we will reduce these voltages to our well-known and well-working values, and I'll probably go even a bit lower. Because some of you told me as well that this EPEVER Tracer N solar charge controller does a equalization charge every 30 days. And there is something under battery parameter settings. Yeah, here. We can set an equalization charge time of 10 minutes at the moment. I would probably set this one here to 30 minutes. And this up here is our absorption timer. I've set this one to 1 minute only for testing purposes, but this will also sit later on I don't know, half an hour or something then. Yeah, but we can set the timers here individually as well. And especially in the solar gate, I don't want to fully charge the battery every single day. It is just not necessary, right? So I'll probably set my absorption voltage to only 3.4 volts, which will give us, I don't know, between 85 and 95% state of charge. It will be inconsistent because we are still operating in the flatter area of the charge curve. And then after half an hour of staying at 3.4 volts per cell, then we are dropping down to 3.35 or even a bit lower maybe. I'm not sure yet. However, the JK-BMS here controlling this battery will still kick in the balancer at 3.45 volts. So it may not balance every single day unless one of the cells actually hits this 3.45 volts, yeah? And then we play whack-the-mole and hit this one on the head and discharge this one cell, which goes over 3.45 volts. But then once a month, if this is true and the Tracer N does an equalization charge, we can actually set this charge voltage then to probably 3.5 volts or something, and then give the whole battery a nice equal top balance again. The balancer does its thing, and after half an hour it all drops down to float again for the next 30 days then. But this is just my rough idea at the moment, so I'm not sure if this works, but today we want to find out if the charging algorithm actually works and if we hit the bulk voltage. God, how is it all called here? The bulk charging voltage, the flow charging voltage, and also the bulk voltage recovery voltage. So let's see if this all works. So the JK-BMS shows us actually at the moment 26.68 volts, right? But here we have only 26.49 volts, yeah? So it's almost 0.2 volts less what the Tracer N, the solar charge controller, measures to what we actually have and what the JK-BMS knows. And we will see this problem coming up now again once we fully charge this battery to, what was it again? Bulk 28 volts. Which is, I always need to look down, 28 volts is 3.5 volts. Okay, so we can now see the IBMS monitor. This is more like to monitor what the BMS actually shows. So we can have a look at the maximum voltage, the minimum voltage here, and the overall pack voltage, and also the current, of course. And here on the mobile phone, we can see the real-time data of the MPPT solar charge controllers, the EPEVER. But I have to manually refresh this from time to time, otherwise it takes about 2 or 3 minutes until we get new data. At the moment we can see 26.68 and 26.49, so almost 0.2 volt difference. All right, okay, let's turn on the solar. There it comes, 43 volts solar panel, and we can see the current is ramping up. And I'll do a refresh here on the app. And here the IBMS monitor shows 1.9 amps and 1.6 are coming from the solar panel at the moment. PV voltage, PV current, and battery voltage and battery current as well. Load is turned off at the moment because we want to fully recharge the battery to 28 volts, which we have already reached. Yeah, the solar charge controller thinks we are 28 volts of battery voltage. Yeah, while the BMS shows only 27.5. So 0.5 volts difference. Maximum cell voltage 3.45, minimum cell voltage 3.41, which is our cell number 4, unfortunately. You will see cell number 4 is always the lowest. And when we discharge this battery, you will see cell number 4 is the lowest again. So it stays always low. It's probably faulty and I have to replace it as well. But here at the moment, 28 volts battery voltage shows the controller, but the BMS or the battery is actually only at 27.3 volts. So there's almost 0.7 volts missing now. And I can't find any parameters in the EPEVER Tracer and Solar Charge controllers where I can actually calibrate the voltage or the current. So if you know anything how to calibrate these Solar Charge controllers, please leave your comments down below. And once again, I would appreciate your feedback and assistance. So, and now you can already see that the voltage in the Solar Charge controller is actually coming down, yeah, 27.6 only. Because as you may remember, yeah, I've set the absorption time only to 1 minute here, and this is now over, and now the voltage is basically reduced to our float voltage, which is 27.6 volts. And there you go, 27.6 volts, yeah. BMS, of course, shows something different, battery shows something different, but the Solar Charge controller thinks we have now absorbed at bulk, and now we're reducing the voltage to float. So this algorithm seems to work perfectly fine, right? And we probably can see this here in the IBMS monitor. Here, total voltage. Yeah, here you can see it at the end of the charge curve. Here, this is our charge. And then we reached 28 volts, what the Solar Charge controller thinks. We are absorbing for a minute, and then we're dropping down to float now, yeah? Typical charge algorithm curve, right? So this seems to work quite well, actually, except the voltages don't match. So I would say I'm going for lunch now for the next 20 minutes or so, and we leave this all sitting here on float voltage situation, let the battery float and still absorb at 27.6 volts, what the Solar Charge controller thinks it is. And then we have another look at the curve here and do a discharge test and set the absorption time a bit longer then. Because to trigger another absorption voltage now, we need to go under 26.8 exactly. All right, and I also need to go in the sun. It is so cold in here. Oh. All right, my friends, I'm back from lunch. I have now started discharging the battery with the light bulbs here because I want to start a new cycle. I have also increased the boost charge time, which is our absorption timer, to 30 minutes because I want to absorb a bit longer at 28 volts and then we fall back to the float voltage. The first test was set to 1 minute and it went a bit too fast, so I couldn't actually see and point to all the numbers on the different screens here, but 30 minutes should give us enough time. All right, here are the parameters again. Bulk charging voltage is 28 volts. And we are at 27.7 volts now. The current is tapering off. Now you want to see the real-time data. Here it is. Here we're still charging with 1.3 amps into the battery, which is the same as here reported by the JK-BMS. But it is actually good to see that the Solar Charge controller keeps the 28 volts. No, it actually doesn't. It goes to 28.2 volts now. What sits on 28.2? Nothing. 28.4 is the equalization charge voltage. Is it doing an equalization now? It goes higher and higher. Or is it just overshooting a bit? So it should actually hold the 28 volts now as good as possible. But it went up over 28.2 volts now for whatever reason. 28.10. I'm not too fussed about 0.10 of a volts. But even then, why? Yeah, if we set 28, it should hold 28 or not 28.1. Oh, now it goes actually down, 28.06. So is it still in bulk, or is it in boost, or is it in equalization, or is it going down to float now? Because voltage is going down. 28 volts, exactly 28 volts. But I hope it doesn't go into float already. Well, we will see. No, it goes up again. Very good. Okay, so it's holding around 28 volts now. Yeah, here you can see this. See, it went all the way up to 28.2 volts, and now it is lowering down to 28. and hopefully holding 28 for 10 minutes and then going down to float voltage 27.6. All right, let's leave this running here for 10 minutes and then we see what the curve actually shows us. Okay, so while we are still absorbing, I haven't actually checked the time yet. Is half an hour gone already? I don't know. But what I want to do is now turn on the load. And I want to see if the power is actually coming from the battery now or if the solar charge controller is ramping up again and delivering the power for the load. Which it should. If it can, it should deliver the power to the load, right? Okay, lights are on. So basically at the moment the current is coming from the battery, so we are discharging the battery and it is very slowly ramping up the solar again. 40 milliamps, you can see 100 milliamps here on the device. It takes a long time, look at this. Look how slow the current ramps up. Milliamp by milliamp. We are still discharging the battery. Come on, solar, you can do it. Why is it going down now again? What is going on now? Ah, is it going on to float now? The half an hour is gone now. Maybe it has gone to float now. I don't know. Well, let's turn off the load and see what happens if it recharges to 28 or if it stays at 27.6. Still 400 milliamps coming from the solar. Is it recharging to 28? It looks like. I don't understand how this solar charge controller works. This makes no sense to me. Yeah, it seems to recharge to 28 volts. Oh, wow. See, if it is still in absorption voltage at 28 volts and we turn on a load, the solar should actually take over this load completely and keep the battery at 28 volts because we are still absorbing. But this is not what we saw. Yeah, we discharged the battery down to 26 volts something and then the solar charge controller kicked back in. What do we have here? 27.8. See, this is exactly in the middle now between bulk or absorption voltage and float voltage. So what state is it in? The current has tapered off to 0 amps from solar, so it keeps the 27.8 volts now. Why is that? Let me turn on the load again. Maybe it is now in float. 27.5. Okay, leave the load on and see what the solar charge controller does. It is ramping up current again. It's discharging the battery. Look at this. It's discharging the battery because the solar charge controller is so slow in ramping up speed. 80 milliamps coming from solar, and to supply power to the load, it's coming from the battery. Why not from the solar? 200 milliamps from solar, still 400 milliamps from the battery. And the battery voltage is at 26.88 volts, which is not correct. You can see the BMS here. We are at 27 volts and not at 26.88. Looks like it is keeping the 26.7 volts. It's still discharging the battery. I don't understand. Now it's ramping up to 1.4 amps. Look at this shit coming from solar, 1.15 amps. And now it's recharging the battery to 27.65 volts. And you can also see how the voltage is going up and down very quickly because it measures at the terminals and not at the battery. So what voltage is it actually recharging to now? 27.6. Keeps the battery now at 27.6 volts. It is now in float mode. So we are now obviously, apparently, maybe in float. 27.6 it is holding more or less. So if I turn off the load now and it keeps charging from the solar, we should see an increase in voltage for the battery. Load is off. Back to 28 volts. Solar is ramping down. Still charging with 200 milliamps around. Let's see if it recharges to 28 or if it keeps 27.6. Looks like it wants to float, right? 70 milliamps only from solar. 10 milliamps from solar. 30 milliamps into the battery. Let's wait for a moment here. I must have hit exactly the moment when the battery went from, or when the solar charge controller went from absorption into float. We hit absorption here at 1528, was 58, 57, 58 here. And now we can see we are not going over 27.7 volts anymore. So obviously we are now in float. Okay, so we try again now. So now we are floating at 27.6 volts. Perfect. Turning on the load again. What happens? Where's the power coming from? I mean, the very first initial power delivery is coming from the battery until the MPPTs have ramped up again. But this is very slow. This is still at not even 100 milliamps coming from the solar. It's all coming from the battery. Look at this. We are discharging the battery under 27 volts. We've got 150 milliamp coming from the solar. We're still discharging with half an amp. It is very, very slow ramping up. So now we are almost there. But we should actually recharge the battery now to 27.6 volts to our float voltage, right? It needs to try to hold the float voltage. So now the MPPT has ramped up to 1.6 amps from solar. Yes, and now it's recharging the battery plus delivering power to the load. So this takes more than a minute to adjust. 27.68 volt now. All right, at least it does it. It goes back to 27.6 volts. Okay, so I would say the charge algorithm works kind of in the EPEVER Tracer AN. It is not as sophisticated as in other solar charge controllers, but I'm very used to the Victron solar charge controllers, and they ramp up and down very, very quickly within seconds. And I don't see these huge spikes in my system over here at all. Yeah, if my battery is floating in summertime and I plug in the vehicle, for example, and pulling 4 kilowatt or something, it comes from the battery for the first 1, 2, 3 seconds maybe, and then solar has already ramped up and taking over and keeping the battery on float voltage. But here we will see the initial majority of the energy is coming from the battery, and it takes 1, 2, 3 minutes to fully adjust the system again. So the EPEVER solar charge controller is very, very slow in finding the maximum power point and reacting to variations in load and battery voltage. But now, here 27.66 volts, so we are back in float. That's all good. So I've now dipped the battery under the bulk recovery voltage. So we are back in bulk or boost mode now and should recharge the battery to 28 volts. I will keep the load on at this point of time and have the solar charger on as well. And we are charging with 1.6 amps. Obviously, some of this power goes into the load directly, but I want to see if it actually is able to recharge this battery to 28 volt. So give me another half an hour or so, and then I'll show you the result. So the light is still on, the solar panel is connected, and we have reached 28.4 volts, as you can see. 0.7 amps coming in from the solar panel at 43 volts, 350 milliamps going to the battery, and 740 into our load. So it seems to recharge to bulk again, holding the voltage there. Current into the battery is tapering off, it's absorbing now, and the solar is actually taking over the load completely. Yeah, man, that seems to work great. So we started our absorption time at 16:35. It is now 16:57. So another 5 minutes, and then we should see this beautiful absorption plateau going down to float. Okay. It is happening right now. Okay, I've got all the screen recordings on now. We have just entered float mode now. So you can see here the voltage curve going down from 28 volts all the way down to 27. Yeah, it says it here, 27.67. Yeah, and here in the app as well, 27.5 it shows. Still discharging the battery a bit, but that's fine until the voltage is stabilizing, and then the solar charge controller takes over again. And now we should see holding the float voltage until the sun goes down, basically. So that is beautiful. Okay, so now after 90 minutes around, we have a beautiful absorption and float voltage curve here on the screen. Yeah, this is our absorption time from here until here. Then the voltage dropped all the way down, a bit too low because the charge controller is a bit slow in reacting. But then it caught the battery again and brought it up to 27.7 volts all the way until the sun goes down. Okay, if I turn off the load now, you can see here in the solar charge controller, we are still charging. PV current is coming down, 380 milliamps, and we are charging the battery now back to 28 volts, right? Because it's so slow to react. See, it's still charging with 140 milliamps into the battery. Even there's no load connected anymore, yeah? It is trying to keep 27.6, but it can't because it is so slow. Did I actually mention this before? This solar charge controller is very slow. And it reflects here in the JK-BMS as well. Voltage is rising now to almost 28 volts. Current into the battery is now 10 milliamps only. Solar charge controller has throttled down. And the voltage will now slowly decrease again to 27.6 volts, what we have set. Float voltage, until the voltage goes to the, what is it called? Bulk voltage, recovery voltage or something. And then a new charge cycle starts. So that's perfect actually, that works. Even the charge controller is a bit slow, but it works. So I'm happy with that. This charging algorithm will be perfectly fine for my solar gate. Alright my friends, so far this video from today testing the charging algorithm of the EPEVER Tracer AN solar charge controller in combination with the JK-BMS and the PALO batteries and the IBMS monitoring board. And of course the EPEVER Wi-Fi dongle, yeah? If you have an EPEVER device, this one plugs into all the communication boards. And if you don't have the RJ45 communication port on your EPEVER device, there are adapter cables available. I'll link all the information down under the video. Yeah guys, so far I am very pleased how everything works together. The solar charge controller actually listens to my settings now and does an absorption charge. It keeps the voltage there for a set time and then falls back to a float and stays there forever until the battery voltage goes under the rebulk voltage, which will be the next day then, or when the sun goes down anyway. And again, thank you very much for all your comments under this last video, pointing out how this works with the EPEVER solar charge controller, which settings are for what, and it seems like it is working a treat. The solar charge controller is very, very slow in reacting to changes when load is coming in, when the battery is charged and everything, but overall it does the job. It doesn't really matter if it is discharging the battery when a load comes in, as long as it is recharging the battery afterwards. This takes some time with this solar charge controller, but that's fine. Because down at the solar gate, we've got all the time of the world. Yeah, so this is basically the whole combination of devices, battery, JK-BMS, the EPEVER with the Wi-Fi dongle, and the IBMS monitoring board. This all will go into the boxes down at the solar gate. And I've also printed a prototype of a battery box, which I will use and put this stack of batteries inside this box here. So I don't have any exposed cables and terminals and bus bars and stuff like this. I just need to make this a bit wider, but it was just a prototype. But yeah, so probably in one of the next tests, I want to connect the solar charge controller to an actual solar panel and put this whole equipment here out somewhere, probably in one of these boxes here or so. Just leave it out in the wild and charge it from solar and then monitor everything inside the house and see how it works. I can connect the light bulbs as well and toggle them remotely via the app or the website. So I can simulate that the motors of the gate are actually coming on for half a minute and then turning off again and see how the whole battery works. So we will do this together and play a little bit around with all this. And of course, I want to do a full capacity test on this battery. Yeah, charge it all the way up to 3.65 volts, all the cells, and then discharge it with 0.2C. and see how much capacity we get out of these cells here. As I said, I probably have to replace cell number 4 as well. And eventually I want to get a second pack of that, because we still have a lot of space down in this battery box. And one 8S battery takes less than half of the space in this battery box. Yeah, I still need to factor in the IBMS board, the JK-BMS, and a bit of wiring and stuff like this. And we don't want to forget a fuse. And potentially, as someone mentioned, an external charging port would be nice, so I don't have to open the battery box all the time if there is need to recharge the battery. And I can just take another 12-volt battery or something with a booster down there and recharge the battery without opening the case. Because thanks to the IBMS monitoring board, I've got access to all the battery data, and I don't need to open the box anymore and measure single battery cells anymore then, yeah? Everything should work remotely, so at least that is my dream. Okay, my friends, thank you very, very much for your ongoing support here. We've got over 112,381 subscribers now. Thank you so much for that. Thanks to everyone who is donating to the channel or becoming a channel member, leaving nice, beautiful and helpful comments down under the videos and liking and sharing them everywhere. Thank you very, very much. So guys, until the next video, when we take a look at a very, very special, we've never seen such a do-it-yourself case before. And this is a prototype, so we are not going to be as harsh as we usually are with these do-it-yourself box, but we want to have a very close look at this prototype of a battery box, probably in the next video or the one after, I'm not sure yet. Anyway, until then guys, you stay charged, stay safe, and thanks again for watching. See you then. Bye bye.